Welcome to Make It, Share It, the podcast where we explore the simple but profound process to overcome fear, doubt, perfectionism, and more enemies of creativity. Make it and share it.
We'll talk to creators of all kinds, from artists and writers to entrepreneurs and inventors, to learn about their creative process, the challenges they faced, and how they overcame them by making and sharing.
Whether you're an artist, entrepreneur, or someone who wants to create but feels stuck, this podcast is for you. Creativity, meet courage. All right, well, welcome back to Make It, Share It, and excited now to talk a little bit with Lauren and Steven. We're going to have this episode where we talk a little bit about some of the guides and people that have helped us along the way. We've had some great guests over the past few episodes that we've gotten to hear from and learn from, but on this one, we're just going to the three of us talk through who's helped us, who's mentored us along the way as we struggled with making things and sharing things. And then we're going to talk about some of the things we're working on right now, more just to give you some real world examples of where the struggle is as we're doing that work right now. And I know Coop even has a project that was kind of born out of working with a guide. And so we'll hear a little bit about that. So should be a fun ride. Excited that you're with us, and we'll jump in. Coop, Lauren, how are y'all doing today?
Good. Doing great. Glad to see you guys this morning.
Likewise.
Yeah, doing good.
First, I don't know exactly how this will release, but Coop's got light in this episode if you're watching on YouTube.
Yay.
That's awesome.
I opened the vampire's lair a little bit and let in some natural light. I'm melting, but it's okay.
But it's great. It works out.
It's great.
Yeah.
Great. You look good. You got a glow going.
Thank you. I don't look as orange as I did from my artificial light.
Absolutely.
That's all right.
And we did talk before we got started, but we have to see it now as the Milli Vanilli shirt. Now that I know that we you just got to show us. Okay.
Yes.
And then how
Nice.
did you get the Milli Vanilli shirt?
I have a few little shops online that sell really random, like flea market stuff. And it was an Indonesian t-shirt. A lot of t-shirts end up in Indonesia. I don't know how. Like you can find an 70s YMCA shirt and these people get them in Indonesia and they just sell them. So it takes you 6 weeks for them to show up, but man, they're awesome and they're real. So it's like a legit 90s Milli Vanilli merch shirt. It even has a giant logo on the back. It's fantastic.
That's amazing.
I loved Milli Vanilli and my world was rocked when that whole scandal came out. I'll tell you that right now.
I bet it was.
Yeah.
I thought they were the coolest looking, dancing, sounding, their whole vibe. Whoever marketed that and put it together, it worked.
Yeah.
Because I was on
You
board.
were hooked.
Yeah. Okay, wait a minute, real quick. So, because now this is like a little rabbit hole, and so I'll try to stop these. But so we know through Let's Play Hurdle that you obviously know a lot about the people that do that work behind the scenes that help market and produce this. Do you know who is doing that for Milli Vanilli? Because they seem like the real hero.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a whole record label behind it. There's a new documentary that's about to come out on the whole thing of Rob and Fab. But it was, in the same way that the guy that used to do all the boy bands that started New Kids on the Block and would just find 5 or 6 guys that were from, Mouseketeers and all that and put them together. He saw these 2 guys with the hair and the look and went, I got an idea.
Yeah.
And he brought them in and tried to get them to sing. And they couldn't sing. They were just in great shape and they could dance. And they were like, well, and they had the fashion, they had the look. And it was like, well, we would bring in writers and people to do your album anyway. We'll just get somebody to sing it too. And today's world, they could get away with it.
Yeah.
Because everyone else is doing it. Especially live. And now there's with MacBooks, there's triple redundancy. You will not have vocal tracks fail live without the venue being hit by lightning.
Wow.
So Rob and Fab were just ahead of their time and they would be famous today and no one would ever know they can't sing a lick.
And no one would care.
No one would care if they found out.
Yeah.
Good grief.
Okay.
Things have
well,
changed.
Yeah.
Things have definitely changed.
Thanks for indulging me on that
Yeah, you're
little
welcome.
excursion.
I can't wait for this new documentary.
Yeah. So great.
Yeah,
I saw
I'm
something on
excited.
Instagram Reels and I didn't have time. I was somewhere where I couldn't listen. And it was video of them kind of being put on the spot to sing. Do you know what I'm talking about? So I need to go
I've seen some of
find it.
those.
Yeah.
The saddest one you'll ever see is a few years after the turmoil, and they were, shunned and made scapegoats of the whole thing,
Yeah.
and were just that they there's video of them with a vocal coach at a piano trying to learn how to
That
sing
might be it.
so that they can sing their own songs. And it's only sad because it's how I would sound if you videoed me with a vocal coach. You just don't have it.
Yeah.
You just, you know,
Yeah.
I could hide in a chorus of 80 and not be the one bringing the whole thing down. But if you put me out front with my good friend Fab, it's gonna be bad. And it's hard to watch.
I bet.
I'll say
Okay.
that.
Well, I'm torn on if I'll watch it or not now.
Um,
That's great.
well, cool. So now we'll
Okay.
do well, this will actually get into no, I'm sure hopefully you enjoyed that. Is we'll get into talking about guides. And so, Coop, let's start with you on this. Tell me about, again, when we say guide, we're thinking about anybody trying to create something, again, whether they're designing the interior of a home, they are writing a book. They are I I would even think the other day, like when you're designing a family, like when you're thinking about what are the rhythms of my family, I'm trying to
Mm.
create something with intentionality. Um, when you're doing that, you're on a journey and there's problems that you face, right? You don't know all the things to do. You get stuck. You're criticizing yourself. You're wondering, why am I even trying this? A guide, what we mean is somebody or a book you read, a video you saw, a person that helped you, that came into that moment on your journey and helped you kind of break through, right? That's what we're looking for here. So, Coop, for you, like along the way as you've been making things and sharing them, is there a guide or two, things that just stand out for you in this space?
The weird part for me is that I've never had the only guide in person that I've ever had is someone like in college when we were doing film school would be Brian Elliott.
Yeah.
He was our screenwriting teacher, and he was someone that would actually read your screenplay, which is, might be 120 pages long. He'd read it that night and he'd redline the heck out of it and give you some suggestions and kind of put you on a better path, tell you what's not working to someone who's read more screenplays than you've ever imagined. He was the only in person guide, mentor. I had great teachers growing up from theater and music when I was young, like to play piano and that kind of thing. But my guides have all been people I don't know. So that's another thing that for me, they've been so instrumental on my path to writing books, putting out content that that's another thing for me that's really pushed the make it share it thing because Rick Rubin has no need to stop down and write his thoughts down in a book and record his thoughts in a podcast on why he's making this stuff and what his thoughts are about it because he has every musician on any genre on the planet wanting to actually do it and create the music with him in his studio that's called Shangri-La because it's so perfect and amazing. But the fact that he stopped down to share
Mm.
his thoughts have spurred me on and helped me break through so many things. So I would say Rick Rubin's number one, like far and away. And then the masterclass stuff, right going into the pandemic, the Christmas before the shutdown, my wife bought me a 1-year pass to masterclass. It couldn't have worked out better because then I had nothing but time. And we all ran out of TV in like 6 weeks. And so I watched every single masterclass they had. I watched Steph Curry's on shooting to Steve Martin. I mean, every single person that was a musician, photographers, and every single one of them, I would write down 2 to 3 pages of notes of their creative process. So a lot of them, the guides were helpful to me because they validated the way I do things. So like when Rick Rubin talks about he sits down and starts to write a song like this, and I was like, that's what I do. It helps you go, okay, I'm not reinventing the wheel here. I'm not doing this wrong. I'm just not as good at it or something, or I just need more
Yeah.
practice. Um, but then, so those are helpful. But then the one that really shocked me, because I almost quit multiple times, was Dead Mouse, the DJ, the guy that wears the thing. So Dead Mouse brought you into his world of how he makes electronic dance music, which is not really my thing. And he could not have been any more different than me. He starts with like sleep deprivation because for him, if he hasn't slept in a day, it takes his filter away. Where he's like, we self filter way too much. When you're writing a song, as soon as you mess with those first few chords, you're like, that's not good. That's not good. Right? That kind of sounds like that song. And he's like, when you haven't slept in 36 hours, you just go with it. And you're just kind of like, no, I'm just going to follow this rabbit hole and see where it goes. And it might take you somewhere that you would have already chopped it off. And to me, I was like, oh, that sounds exhausting. I would never do that in a million years. Are you kidding me? I'm already tired. So, but it was challenging. And every single thing he said for me was like, I would never do that. But it was like these little, it was an extra little bullet in the gun to go, well, when I'm stuck, he just gave me 10 things I never would have thought of on how to be creative and how to break through and how to try something new or get out of your comfort zone. So oddly, I find myself going back to the Dead Mouse masterclass way more than I ever in a million years would have thought. But Rick Rubin, to me, everything I feel about music and the reason I've been obsessed with music since my first memory is of music stuff is 5 years old, hearing Born in the USA on the radio and just thinking, this song jams so hard. I have to play guitar. So I went to my garage and took my dad's badminton racket that was, he didn't play badminton. I don't even know why we had this thing. It was hanging in the garage. I got it. I cut a bunch of strings off because I knew it had too many strings on it. I got in trouble for that one. I tied his belt to it and made a guitar so that I could jam out to Born in the USA.
Oh,
So to me, I have never been a music theory guy. I don't have my master's in music. I can play just about any instrument, but if you ask me what I'm playing, I can't tell you. Um, and it's because I've always tried to stay connected to the feeling and just what do I hear, what's in my head, what's in my heart, and what makes me tap my foot and bounce my head. And to me, the more you get into the scientific things of music, I've just seen that kill people. I've had guys tell me in a studio, like, you can't play that note there. Are you insane? Why? It's like, well, it's not technically in that key. Tell that to Rage Against the Machine. Like, what are you talking about? Like, we're not taking a test today. It sounds cool, doesn't it? No, no, it does sound cool. I'm like, then we're playing it. And so so Rick Rubin is that times a million. He's not touching the board. When you play something for him, he lays on his back with his hands on his stomach and his eyes closed. And he's like, I'm waiting for you to move me. I'm waiting for a move, like something I want the hair on the back of my neck to stand up. Make me feel something. And if not, we need to start over. And it has nothing to do with, hey, let's add another guitar track. Ooh, what if we went to the fifth minor there? Because then that would bring a jazz scale to, no, no, no. I don't care.
Yeah.
Make me dance.
Yeah. Yeah, there's
You know?
I watched an interview that Anderson Cooper did with him that I'll put in the show notes. It's probably the most
Yeah.
accessible because he's doing it for 60 minutes. So,
Yeah.
it's a wide ranging audience. And so they're trying to give you a high level window into Rick Rubin's world. But it's a lot of what Coop was saying. But if you want to explore that further, it's an interesting interview to go and watch. So yeah, thanks,
Yeah.
Coop. Lauren, what about you?
Yeah. You bet.
um, yeah, I think more of my guides have some personal and then some from far away, and one that's a mix of both. Um, I wish it were so clear cut as Coop, where it's like it was music and it was this. I have so many different desires and things that I do that it's hard to narrow it all down. But one that comes to mind with writing. So, and honestly, any kind of creative endeavor was Jon Acuff's book Finish, which you guys know me. I have a hard time finishing things. I can get it started. I have a song that I shared with y'all that guess what? It's exactly where it was 6 months ago or whenever that was. And so he's great. In fact, there was just even something this morning I read by him where he talks about the inner critic and creative work and how the inner critic doesn't necessarily need to be completely killed or silenced, but needs to be inserted at the appropriate time. And so that was encouraging for me because I tend to have a very loud inner critic who steps in pretty early in my process. And I need to just tell him to be quiet or her. I don't know if it's him or her. It's just a voice that's really loud and discouraging. Um, and so John Acuff has been someone that from afar I've learned from. Also a friend, Jenny Allen. I remember sitting with her, gosh, it's been, I think, 15 years ago, where she is like a dreamer and a doer. She dreams everything up and then she goes for it and does it. And I remember her just sitting across from me at a table at La Madeline, somewhere in Dallas, saying, "Okay, what are you dreaming about right now?" And it always takes me a minute to parse out what exactly am I dreaming about? Because sometimes I'm dreaming about five different things. And so having to
Mhm.
become clear on what is it I'm dreaming about? What's kind of at the forefront of what I want to do, and so she just kind of pulled those things out of me and then was like, okay, go do it. And I was like, is it that easy? Because it doesn't feel that easy. So she's been someone that's been kind of like a coach. So I think she's been a coach. And then even my husband, Matt, has been a coach where he's like, just go. And I can so see them going and doing, dreaming it and just doing it. And I'm inspired by them, but I also get a little discouraged because I do feel different from them. And that difference will sometimes be my reason to stay stuck and to not go and do.
Mm.
And so there have been other people in my life that have been guides. In fact, I meet with a therapist. I met with her yesterday to talk about this very thing where I have these things I want to do and I want to work on, but that critic comes in so quickly
Mm.
to just hit pause and like, I don't know. I don't know if we should be doing this. Are you good enough to do this? Do you have what it takes to do this? And so she's been someone that is I can identify with a little bit more. She's not going to be the Jennies and the Matts who are like, just go for it. You can do it. You know, if you dream it, you can do it. Take the first step. She understands how I'm a little bit more nuanced and I'm just like to be okay and to make friends with that inner critic and not try to kill it because I think all of my energy goes towards killing the inner critic and not towards making something. And so they've been my guides. And then my friend Christy, who does a lot of the same things that I either want to do or am doing, she she's been a friend probably more than she's been a guide explicitly. She's guided with me with just her doing. So I've watched her do things. I've watched how she's done it. I've learned from her. We are very similar in kind of our gift sets, also how we approach different things. And so I by just watching her, I've learned from her. So those have been my guides. I wish I was more of a masterclass person. I have tried watching them. I think I get a little it seems a little daunting and I can focus on what's different more than I can focus on what's the same. And honestly, you guys, I know I've said this before, have been great guides for me where you have both seen something in me and have called that out and encouraged me in that. And I think what I need, maybe more than maybe I eventually will need a guide, but right now I need coaches. I need people saying, just go for it. And I've done things.
Mm.
That's the reality is I've written books. I've written songs. I have done the things so I can do them. It's just getting that encouragement from the sidelines of keep going. And then I'm hopeful. So I feel a little bit more like a creative in progress than maybe you guys are. Um maybe my next phase is okay, you're going. Now, how do you get better at what you're already doing? And so that's those have been my guides. They've been only ones from far away. Jon Acuff, Christie's a little bit far away, but she's my personal friend. And the others have been guides that have been a little bit more like coaches. And so now maybe I'm at the point where I can look to other guides to improve what I've already done
Mm.
and to kind of be the kinder inner critic or the guide to the inner critic even to get better at what I'm already doing.
I I would say to that when my inner critic, because I think there's 2 kinds of inner critics. If your inner critic is, that's no good, then I think you're on the right track of like, "Okay, I've gotta talk to someone about this." Then there's other people that I've worked with closely that their inner critic is just more of a perfectionism. It's like, "No, I like that, but I gotta fix this or I gotta do this a little better." And that's more of a, "Man, it'll never finish." Like, there's like, Rick Rubin even talks so much about, like, at certain points, you have to walk away from the song because it's never done. It's done for now. It's done in this group, and now we're gonna share it. But you coulda worked on that song till the day you die. So I feel like it's gotta, like, figure out if you have a perfectionist inner critic or just, like, a trying to kill all things inner critic. But then for me, what's helped push through that, because I was more at certain points, it was never done. I could always tinker, was collaborating. So I started working with collaborators that were better than me. And when you work with someone that was better than me and someone that I respected what they did, and I'm writing with them or working with something, and I'd play that thing and they go, dude, that's perfect. All right, we're going to start with that. And just set it. I was like, I would have picked that apart for the next 2 days. And it was something of like, I had to like hone my inner ear and trust myself. I'm going, no, I liked it. I think it's just, it almost became part of my process to pick it up, pick it apart and perfect it when that was not serving the song or the project. And having someone else in the room I was collaborating with that looked at me and went, that's what we got to do. That's it right there. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then it worked.
That's
So that to me helped me break through.
I agree. And I think sometimes I've experienced that in songwriting in
Yeah.
particular. Now it did have to do with that person, their personality and them understanding my heart and
Mm,
where I've done collaboration and I've disagreed with the collaborator. But then there
totally.
was one, honestly, all the songs that I wrote on my EP, The Narrow Place, my collaborator was so encouraged, like just help me see a good idea and just go for it, like you said. And
Mm,
so I felt this confidence of, okay, yeah, that is a good idea. And we need
that's
to
good.
go
Yeah.
this way. And because like you said, I can second guess myself. I have both inner critics. I have the one
Okay.
that's like,
Yeah.
that's dumb. That's no good. And the one that, well, even what you tried, this is how it needs to be better. Um, but I do think collaboration with the right people in particular, and that might be just personality based and
Yeah.
and maybe that's me, but I agree. When I've collaborated, that has helped me move forward.
Yeah. I thought I wrote down Ratatouille, the movie. If you haven't seen that, it's an incredible story about the artist or creator and the critic and their relationship. And in this case, it's literal that there's the rat who wants to be a chef in Paris. And then the critic, he's the big, well-known critic for the food scene in Paris. And so they're back and forth. How their relationship is so intertwined and where it's at its unhealthiest, and then where it's at its best. And at the end, it's fascinating to see it come together. It's a beautiful movie and story. So check that out if you want to. And then the other thing I'm hearing is just that we need other people. I think that's where when I look at it, is like the way that we're designed is to be finite, that we don't have everything that we need just to do it by ourselves.
Mhm.
And so what I'm hearing is that that's the theme. And then for each of us, we were going to need different parts that whatever we don't have, right? So if you're a Jenny or a Matt, to use Lauren's examples, what you may need is not so much, you don't need that person coaching to go do it. You're doing it a million miles an hour. You need help and support to actually go execute all the details of it. You're a visionary. You're going to need people to support the work. And they're not necessarily visionaries, these people, but they love to grab a hold of a good vision and then go help execute it. But if those people try to just do things on their own in their office, they could do some things. I mean, they could write a book or they could do like a solo podcast, and those would be great things. And they do those things, but it wouldn't be their full expression of creativity. And so I'm like Lauren in that it's probably a mix. Like I have some big visions and things that I dream up and imagine, but and I said this in our pilot episode, I will overthink things before they even get started. So, having had the chance to work with like Matt, I've watched that he doesn't have that issue. And so I know, you get jealous of that. You're like, man, what's that like? Just to be like, just go do it. And it is encouraging. So it's a weird thing. And I'm saying this to say, like, it illustrates, we have three different people in here, all three different in the challenges that emerge, but they're all just very real and present challenges that we need help to overcome. And guides, whether they're Rick Rubin from afar or Jon Acuff from afar, or they're Jenny Allen or Brian Elliott or Matt Chandler or Kristen Rabelais or Tawny Cooper, and all these different people that are in our lives helping us, that's essential. Like nothing will be created without that. So, and if this is the problem with me, I'm like, well, the objection is, because of philosophy in college, the objection is, what about Dostoevsky or, what about somebody who mostly just wrote books and was by themselves? If you go read their stories, they were surrounded by other people and community for the most part. There's a few people that have stories where they were pretty much locked in a room and pretty isolated. But even then, there was usually a sibling or somebody that they were bouncing ideas off of. It's just really hard to find where it's just complete isolation and to create in that. So I hear that in all of our stories with guides. I did want to read, I'd shared this with Lauren and Coop, this quote from Jesse Armstrong. He's the showrunner, was a showrunner of the show Succession. So incredible show, but it has a lot of darkness and tragedy in it. So keep that in mind if you go into it, but it's also really well done. So he says this about creativity: it's easy to have the impulse to write, and it's easy to enjoy that floaty feeling of one day I'm going to do something. And as soon as you start writing it, if you're a normal human being, and probably also if you're a good writer, your reaction will be like, this is terrible. So to get from that feeling of I might have something to say to writing that terrible draft that you hate, anything that will get you through that, whether that's like having a date in the diary that we're going to shoot this little teaser for YouTube, or if you've got a friend who you trust or a creative writing group, something you do with pals or something online, anything to make you finish, then do the next one. And I love that. I think that sums up Make It, Share It. What we're trying to do with this podcast and encourage you in is that got to get started, got to move, got to create, and then share it, and then do the next one and repeat that. I love that in our One Night in 1,000 Years episode with Craig Cunningham that he shared this masterpiece idea, right? That if you think this one thing you're making is the masterpiece, you're probably not going to finish it, because that's a lot of pressure, right? It's like, how do you just get a routine of creating, making, sharing? So I think that's a huge exhortation that I commend to all of you out there trying to create. And then I echo the masterclass. I am like you too, Lauren, in that I still haven't finished my favorite masterclass, which is with the Duffer Brothers, the creators of Stranger Things. But I loved the beginning of it, and it's helped me in particular because their big press is the same thing when they're writing. Just start getting ideas down, start it's not going to be great. And so they give examples from Stranger Things, which I look at and go, this is huge, built out, complex world with this epic plot, beautiful character development, all this entertainment. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, how did they do that? And if you listen to them tell their story in the masterclass, it was choppy. At the beginning, they didn't know who these characters were. They just kept moving. And that was just encouraging to me of like, yeah, when I'm creating and writing a story, I don't know the answers to what's driving this particular character all the time. And so I'll want to quit. So I'm just like, oh, I must not be the Duffer Brothers. It's not there versus like just keep moving. So those are some of mine. And again, I'll try to do show notes on these.
The one that always sticks out to me that's encouraging is I'm a huge my m my method is to get the horrible thing out as fast as possible. I'm a better editor, and so I need something to edit. So I'm like, sometimes I know it's bad, and I'm like, "I'll fix it later, I'll fix it later." But mine is always Kent knows this, one of my favorite films of all time, and I know it's up there with Ken, is Good Will Hunting. And in the good
Well,
old
I have to
days of
get
Good Will
sorry. I
Hunting.
did a visual for YouTube,
Yeah,
and then I also have to do that just because it makes my heart happy. I love that movie. Go ahead.
it's the best. And, Kent and I were doing film school together when this movie comes out, and, I mean, you got Matt and Ben, friends, writing movies, being in them. It was just fantastic. But in, like, the DVD commentaries, which is another thing I used to just tear up like crazy and listen to every second of, there was, like, a draft of Good Will Hunting where they wrote it as Will Hunting is an alien. That's how he's so smart, that he's from another planet. And he goes, "And we wrote it, and we thought that was potentially a way to go, and we finished it." And he was like, "And I don't remember who we showed it to or how we woke up and went, 'Oh my gosh, okay, we gotta start back at act 1 and just no alien, no alien.'" But that's super helpful to me to know there's no bad ideas, let's explore some things, and you're gonna have to get to the alien draft before you can get to the Oscar-winning
Mm.
draft. And so putting down the alien draft is not a bad thing, and it's not a deal killer. And just because they wrote a horrible version of that script didn't mean it was dead and unsalvageable. It actually spurred them on towards winning an Oscar.
Yep.
So it's like, I always think of like, man, that's a bad idea.
Yep.
Which Ben Affleck's line that I think it was what Ben Affleck said to Matt Damon in the writing part of that was he said, "Please don't judge me by how bad my bad ideas are, but judge me for how good my good ideas are, so that we can be in this safe place and we are willing to throw out, what if Will's an alien? And no one's gonna judge me and go, 'Hey, he doesn't need to be in this room.' But just judge me for like maybe one of every 10 is gonna be like, 'Oh, that's usable. Yeah, let's go with that.'" And I thought that was another good thing when collaborating. Don't bash someone for a horrible idea that you need them.
Yeah,
You
Yeah.
need those bad ideas.
I do.
Amen. Um, Lauren, was there something you're going to say or?
Well, just kind of that collaboration where it happen rarely does it happen in isolation that you creativity or something that you make. It makes me think of just recently I saw something about Tolkien where, he was throwing out ideas about what would eventually become Lord of the Rings, and he wasn't even sure it was very good. And I can't remember if it was like with the Inklings, so C.S. Lewis and I forget who the third person was,
Charles
or
Williams.
yeah, or if it was before the Inklings, because he had something in, I think, college or university, a group similar to that. Um, but that was encouraging to me because it probably felt to him like Will Hunting is an alien. It's like, does this even make sense? Is it a good idea? And he just threw it out there, and he was able to get feedback like, yeah, this is great. Keep going.
Keep doing.
And so we aren't the first ones ever to need that.
Yeah.
My favorite thing thinking about him writing that insane
Yeah.
world is like, I mean, he's making up races of things and
Languages?
worlds, languages, geography. He's drawing maps. I mean, this is go but what always cracks me up is because of the creativity. I just imagine his creativity completely ran out, and they're like, "Hey, man, you gotta name that mountain." And he's like, "Okay, let's just call it, Mount Doom. I'm out. I got nothing left." They're like, "What was Mount Bad not
Mount
available?" Like,
Bad.
"No, no, no, come on, just spend 5 more minutes. We need a real name for the mountain. Mount Doom. I'm done. I can't think
Worn
of
out.
anything else for this darn thing."
Mount
That's
Doom.
So
great.
every time I'm watching the films or something and they say Mount Doom, I'm always like, "Ah, I wish that was the one thing they would have gone, let's get a better name.
Yeah.
Let's get a better name."
Well, let's do this because it's this actually episode has really been about guides, and we're 35
Yeah,
minutes in, and I love that. I think that's great. The one thing since we teased it is maybe if you want to finish Coop with what you're working
yeah.
on, and we've heard some other things that Laura and I are doing, and I'm sure we'll hear more. So yeah, what tell us about this where it connects with the guide process?
Okay, so I've talked about this before where Billy Corgan lately, I think it's because he's a father late in life and he's really mellowed out and he bought the WCW, the old wrestling thing that like I grew up watching because he loves it. And he's touring again as Smashing Pumpkins with some of the original members. And I just think he's in a happier place. And he is teaching what he learned. He grew up, I mean, he dated Courtney Love before Kurt Cobain. He knew Kurt Cobain, the competition with Nirvana. Like he's just opening up to some of the things he did poorly, becoming famous, talking about all these things. And at one point in this interview that I was watching and just devouring this interview, he was saying, he's trying to be the artist and provide things for people that he wished he had when he was 13 was his line. Like, who's the musician I wanted to be when I was 13 and listen to when I was 13? And so that was really convicting to me of like, I'm not Rick Rubin and I don't have the platform to teach and guide others. If I put out the same things on Instagram, it's just going to fall on deaf ears. And like, who's this dude just talking about music all the time? So I put my money where my mouth is and I'm teaching a songwriting class this semester at my kid's school.
Yes,
I love that.
So
awesome.
it's going to be rad. So
Yes.
here's the thing. They have after school, like a Loquium program at this classical school. And it's like basically art. They have dance, theater, bookmaking. They have taekwondo, um, Legos where they build and make robots. So all this stuff. And so I was like, man, what if I just did a songwriting class? And it's for fifth through ninth graders. I'm going to take 12. We're going to have four that have no musical experience whatsoever, four that play an instrument of some kind. It could be the recorder, don't even care, and four that can sing. And we are going to learn how I think in the course description I said we're going to learn all the rules and just so we know how to break them.
I love that.
So they're going to learn everything they can about how songs are structured and made, and we are going to write a ton of songs. And since it's a songwriting course, other people might sing them. Like I'm going to maybe bring in some professionals to sing and record some of these. So I'll be calling on people on this podcast to sing it up. And I think for like the recital at the end of the year, some people are going to perform a few songs live, and we're going to play a few recordings and put it out on a CD, like a on Spotify of like that semester's 8 or 10 songs that make the cut. But I'm really excited because I think I can get a lot of good songs out of kids going back to that. They don't know what to do or not do yet. And so I'm like, just sing me a cool melody, make a catchy hook, and we'll make it into a song. I can help you get it into a finished song, but you're going to have a hook in your head as a little kid that's just so out there and perfect that I can't wait to hear it. So I'm working on curriculum. I've got some books and some fun stuff, and they're all going to have their little rhyming dictionaries and notebooks. And it's been fun to think back in college of like the things that really spurred me on. Like uh, every single day, we're going to listen to a song and break it down intro, verse, chorus, hook. And they're going to learn songs that they have never We're going to break down a song every single class and do all these things. And can't I remember the Mary Slaughter, one of our professors would make us write for 5 minutes and you couldn't pick up your pencil. So it was teaching stream of consciousness. And so you would start writing with an idea, but once you can't pick up your pencil, like ever, you quickly start talking about elephants, jumping a fence. You run out, you like, I can't pick it up. I can't pick it up. And so you have to keep going. And there's supposed to be no punctuation. Like, we're going to make them do that. And I can't wait to see what a 12-year-old says.
That's
But I'm really
amazing.
That's
excited.
awesome.
I'm excited to help. Like, what class would I have been obsessed with
Mhm.
in the 7th grade? And I'm going to try to create that class
I would have
Mm,
loved that
and see how it
in
goes.
yeah,
7th
Yeah,
grade.
it's going to be fun.
I love that. You'll be a perfect guide for those creators. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's
It's going to be
exciting.
fun.
I what Slaughter was doing, I later learned, I'm 90% sure she got from Julia Cameron. I'm sure Julia got it from somebody else, but it's a good plug for the Artist Way, which has been super helpful
Oh,
for
yeah.
me as well. And morning pages, something that she talks about in there as a habit, right? Of whether it's 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 3 pages, just set some, window of time. I would encourage in working with some people that don't see themselves as writers to just say, hey, do 3 minutes. Just to give yourself
Mm.
3 minutes and see what starts to happen for a month. But just to write like that without picking the pen up it's pretty amazing what it does, not just for like creativity, but even just in your soul of the work it can kind of do, that you're like, wow, I feel better. So give it a whirl.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Well, hey, thanks for talking about guides, sharing some of the things
Yeah.
that have helped you guys. Enjoyed the conversation. I will say, I'll try to do this more often, is the single biggest thing you can do if you're enjoying the show is this. It's not social media. It's going to Apple Podcast, Apple in particular, and just giving a review and a rating. And it can be one sentence of, wow, great podcast. That is the single biggest thing you can do to help us as we're helping others make and share it. So try to get better about asking for that. And I think other than that, that's it for today.
All right.
All right. See you guys.
You see here, kid? You gotta just go for it. Don't think about what comes after or what came before. You just gotta bend your knees, take a deep breath, and jump. And you might think, what if I fall?